Basically, for those who don't know, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some clips from Jurassic Park. This is kind of the underlying question we'll be asking ourselves. Panelists will take turns to provide some inputs, and then I think for every clip, after you guys have returned, we'll open the floor for like 5 minutes for the audience to ask questions or just give your own inputs. So don't be shy.
Alright, clip number 1. Let's go.
We've engineered them that way.
Blood temperature seems like a high 80s, maybe. Whoop.
91.
There you go.
Homeothermic?
Mm-hmm.
It holds that temperature?
But again, how do you know they're all female? Does somebody go out in the park and pull up the dinosaur skirts?
We control their chromosomes. It's really not that difficult. All vertebrate embryos are inherently female anyway. They just require an extra hormone given at the right developmental stage to make them male. We simply deny them that.
Deny them that?
John, trying to control your tempting is, it's not possible. Listen, if there's one thing the history of evolution has taught us, it's that life will not be contained. Life breaks free, it expands to new territories, and crashes through barriers painfully, maybe even dangerously, but, well, there it is. There it is.
You're implying that a group composed entirely of...
Okay, so the main point of that is not all the dinosaurs were bred to be female, but obviously this one of them turned out to be male, so how could that have been better tested or prevented?
Anyone start?
Yeah,
Yeah, anyone care to?
So, to me, they introduced a third party into that, which was the frogs. And they didn't really know enough about these frogs. And they haven't tested any integration with these frogs. But every system needs a frog integration test. But they also didn't use the Ian Malcolm special test of lift the skirts up, which is exactly what it suggested, and no one did that. So, but at the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter what testing you do on that, because life finds a way. Yeah.
You see, I was a little distracted by the robot in that scene, and I don't care about the question about the female thing. It's like whatever. But that's because I'm ex-dev, not test. But that robot. Why did they have to design a robot to take off the shell from them and put it down? I think they're perfectly capable of doing that themselves. That's all.
Are we allowed to touch the shell? Is that why we can't touch it? Will we interfere with it if we touch it?
It had already been born.
Fair enough.
I think it was just like, what are you doing holding that? I'm having it.
I actually quite like the use of the arm, because that's how I want people to use automation. We should be using it.
What to do with things we can do ourselves?
Well, a little bit of it all the time instead of like, they could have automated the whole thing. They didn't, they just did a little bit of it.
The robot
I think is important.
disappears in the next scene. It's
What?
actually, because it's all edited together, it isn't there.
We need to see the next scene.
Don't spoil Jurassic Park. It's not the responsible time. Let's have none of this.
It's bolted to the ground.
I'm not listening to
I think the interesting thing here as well, though, is they foresee some of these problems. They're discussing them, but they're like, oh, like they can't happen. And I think that happens quite a lot, doesn't it?
Didn't get subject matter experts, did they? See Ian Malcolm, get him in at the start and he'll tell you everything.
Well, they were talking about it, so they knew the information they needed to know to foresee these problems and even discuss them, but not in a real way.
I don't know, why is it a problem anyway? You know, where's the diversity? Why have all females?
I think that's a really good point, actually. Yeah, they haven't thought this through. How are they going to solve problems and things like that if they've not got a diverse team? Everyone's into roller derby rather than a whole mixture of...
Dino roller dog.
Dino roller derby? That's a new sport. We should remember.
I think we're done.
I think we're done. That we have scaled the heights with Dino roller derby, and I don't think anything else is capable of being reached from that.
Very little controversy so far. Like you all seem to be in agreement.
I do think there's a bit at the end there, like you mentioned it. they're ignoring their own advice. It's like, I've been on projects where it's working, but you're stood there going, yeah, but, and they're like, no, Richard, no. It is working. It's like, yeah, no.
Only no Richard.
How do we actually get into that and actually have, make them realise the things we're trying to say are important? But sometimes you're so blinded by success or something working that you just push it aside. It's not important. There's a guy with his hand up.
Yeah, so it's a question, right? So at the moment, what we're getting here is kind of like the business requirements. So we want to produce dinosaurs that aren't going to reproduce. So how do you actually unit test, or how do you test a dinosaur so you get an assertion when they do reproduce?
Messily? I don't know.
Lift up the skirt.
A lot of those dinosaurs were actually female throughout. It only took one, but it was like an anomaly almost in that respect. So unless you're testing thousands of dinosaurs all the time or something,
it's an edge case,
difficult
isn't it?
solution to get.
Was it only me that really wanted that little dinosaur to bite one of their noses off? It was. Okay.
Despite the anomaly, is it about testing or is it about mitigation? So people are in the video they're still saying it could happen, but we're still doing nothing to mitigate what if it did happen. Not necessarily test for it happening, but putting something in place that if it did happen we can react to it, or
risk register.
What's the risk of making an assumption? They just made an assumption that because they denied the hormone, that 100% of the offspring would be female.
I mean, this is just a willingness to test in life, right?
I'm not sure.
If they did the test,
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, they can mitigate it by making them not only just all female, but also all infertile as well, because if they're already messing around genes made to do that. And also, they could test in, like the amalgam test, just test in life and make sure their assumptions are actually working out in the wild, right?
So it's a monitoring issue.
Yeah, it's a monitoring
I think maybe they have
to DevOps now.
They haven't defined their monitoring requirements, have they? Yeah.
Testers would work like that, even if it worked like that for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, what's the effect of the reproduction? Why do they not want to reproduce? Why is that bad? And how can you make that less bad?
Well, yeah, because if the fences hadn't have gone down and they hadn't have escaped, then
what?
You're jumping ahead.
I've never seen this film.
Everybody's seen Jurassic Park.
Got to prepare for that disaster.
Yeah,
ruined the ending. Ruined it.
But I genuinely don't see the issue because they could have controlled the population without stopping them from breeding, I think.
But isn't this a bit top-down control management? I mean, shouldn't we be allowing the dinosaurs to be creative, to add the value that they can add, rather than kind of just say, no, this is what you're allowed to do and no more?
So agile dinosaurs.
Agile dinosaurs.
Dino acrobatics.
Right. Ready to move on to the next clip? Okay, I'll go get the time stamp. Oh, no. Right.
Vehicle headlights are on and they're not responding. Those shouldn't be running off car batteries. Item 151 on today's glitch list. We have all the problem of a major theme park and a major zoo, and the computers aren't even on the feet yet.
Dennis, our lives are in your hands and you have butterfingers?
I'm totally unappreciated in my time. You can run this whole park in this room with minimal staff for up to 3 days. You think that kind of automation is easy? Or cheap? You know anybody who can network 8 connection machines and debug 2 million lines of code for what I did for this job? Because if you can, I'd love to see him try.
Sorry about your financial problems, Dennis. I really am, but they are your problems.
Oh, you're right, John. You're absolutely right. You know, everything's my problem.
I will not get drawn into another financial debate with you, Dennis. I really will not.
There's been hardly any debate at all.
I don't blame people for their mistakes, but I do ask that they pay for them.
Thanks, Dad.
Dennis!
I feel really bad for Dennis. Like, if anything, he's really ahead of his time. This is 93, and he's basically a one-man team doing everything. He's doing the networking even. I mean, that's really impressive. Like, big up for Dennis, but he's got an awful atmosphere. I mean, Samuel Jackson's just sat there smoking a fag right in his face for a start. You know, He doesn't try and talk to him at all. Where's his support as a team?
And he obviously hasn't had a lunch break.
No,
he's having to
exactly.
eat at his computer.
Yeah, and he's underpaid as well. I bet he's not paid what he's worth for that. Debugging 2 million, what does he mean?
He's
I don't
paid
know.
what he's worth. He told them what he wanted to be paid. He
And they
bid
said-
for the work and they agreed to pay him.
That's true, but then I bet you they tried to get him to do a lot more than he actually.
And they're putting all that
This is his
pressure
own fault.
on him.
It's his own fault.
Poor Dennis. You're so harsh for Dennis.
And all that pressure they're putting on him. Everything is up to him,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah.
But you know, who can't just debug 2 million lines of code just like that? I mean, I have to say, not convinced by his arguments, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't think he, but he doesn't feel like he has to try because he shows that his boss doesn't understand anything he's doing. That's the point there. That's all he's showing there. He's making a point.
No managers understand anything that people do.
That's true. Exactly. Yeah, Attenborough's just a manager. He doesn't understand anything. No.
Managers don't, but peers should, and that's kind of the relationship they don't have. He's not being a peer, he's trying to dictate, tell him what to do. And if he was realising that everyone's part of that picture, I think he would have been maybe nicer to him. Yeah. But then also Dennis is very bitter now. He's kind of looks like he doesn't care anymore.
I think Dennis should have been a team rather than one man.
Yeah.
He's a one-man cross-functional team.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well, what's Samuel L. Jackson doing in that situation? Like, he's not helping him out. What's
Looking
his
cool,
function
having a
in
fun.
that? Exactly.
Negative as well, isn't he?
He is. Yeah. It's an oppressive Jackson.
As well, the park owner keeps throughout the film. He says, "No expense spared." It's like a sort of catchphrase that he has throughout the film. But it appears that he did spare some expense because he didn't get a proper development.
Yeah, or Dennis is salary.
You're just being mean to Dennis now.
Yeah. Back off Dennis, alright?
Has anyone got a project with 2 million lines of code? I think that's does Dennis know about dry? Does he know any development principles? How did he get to 2 million lines of code?
There's some people here definitely that do.
I don't.
You do.
I don't think he wrote test-driven development as an approach either.
No, that's probably true.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Probably did.
Yeah, I think there's an issue there.
So I'm going to pick up on the car and the headlights. He said it shouldn't behave that way, which kind of makes him think that they haven't tested them at all. He doesn't have a clue what they should and shouldn't do. It's just, they shouldn't behave that way, and he's not really bothered about it. It's like, it shouldn't be that way. We'll carry on. They don't stop it. They don't prevent it. It doesn't really raise the alarm or anything. Just
how would you have stopped it or prevented it?
if he's spotted something that shouldn't be that way, to himself, he's probably has an oracle saying that this shouldn't be. There's something going wrong here. And you would have put a plan in place, hopefully in that 2 million line of code you can stop the cars and then send a message to them saying, are you okay?
So you want more lines of code?
Oh, yeah, why not? If you've gone past 2 million, you might as well just keep going. What's the point? But yeah, he should have acted on his own instincts, but instead he doesn't really seem to respond.
There's no unit testing on the headlights as well, is there?
Pretty much.
So but you have to remember, this is all one test. The point in Jurassic Park is this is a test. This is a user acceptance test. They're getting people over there who are experts for the park to test it. So it isn't live. So it's fine. Because it just basically is running the test. It's alright. Who cares?
The floor.
So you're clear it's not testing in production here?
No, it's definitely a test environment. So 2 islands.
This is UAT.
And they could have used Ireland. They chose to use Ireland. That's great.
I think they had a massive defect list as well. And it was just a list.
151.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not managing the defect in a reasonable way.
There's no risk of priority management on that list there, is there?
And it become that thing, you just said add it to the list. It was like, nah.
Yeah.
Who cares? There's many of them. Stick it on.
The attitude thing there as well. And again, he was just being told what to do instead of actually taking ownership of it. So I see devs in that kind of mode, and other people also who are kind of just been told what to do for so long that they have no responsibility for anything. I'm just sitting here doing what I'm told to do. So, you see that in the real world, don't you? Yeah. Whereas actually, if you say to people, you guys are responsible for this, and actually no one's managing you, but you guys are managing yourselves, there's a world of difference.
It's a lack of care in his job. It's
Yeah.
a lack of care for the company.
But
They're
often,
not together as
but
well,
I don't
aren't
think people, normally people don't have that as a default starting place. They have that through experience of being slapped down and slapped down and slapped down when they're trying to do anything
Yeah.
proactive.
To be fair, not all of them go to the extent of committing corporate espionage, but you know, it's.
That's true.
Now who's ruining it?
That's true.
I didn't know he was ruining it till
He's a
you said
nice
that.
guy.
Back to being mean to Dennis, he's kind of just watching a video. It's not even working.
He's having his lunch.
You don't know
Everyone
what they
deserves
do.
a lunch
You're
break.
prejudging that video. That video could be like the welcome
He
video.
was
for people
he's
who
playing
judge
chess
it.
on the other one as well.
He's multitasking pretty well.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
You know, and how often do people come round and just sort of say, oh, those guys are having too much fun, they're not working hard enough. It's really important to have a bit of fun in the workplace.
Are you saying don't give developers a break? Is that what you're saying? That's really hard. I mean, no wonder Dennis is so overworked.
Exactly.
I want to know
If it
what
wasn't
that
for
is.
testers picking on him, he'd be fine.
What's the little head thing?
It's one of the defect dinosaurs.
In response to Stephen, though, if you didn't give a developer a break, what happened when you gave him a break? He went off the island and like tried to sell dinosaur eggs.
Yeah.
But he's done that because he's stressed of not having a break in probably, 10
You give
years
him a
of
break.
creating this.
Now you're
you know.
you're doubly ruining the film. I mean,
Also, he's ahead of his time. He's got 3 monitors. Like, it took me a long time to get 2. Never mind 3.
One thing that struck me was when Richard Attenborough says to him, "Your problems are not our problem."
Yeah.
And that's well, to me that spoke volumes about how they valued him as an employee, and that might then be why some of these behaviours are as they are, because they're not valuing the skills or him as a person.
And he's a big bus factor. Bus factor. If you get hit by a bus tomorrow, like if Dennis got hit by a bus, I don't know if there's any buses on the island, but you know.
or eaten by dinosaurs.
Or eaten by dinosaurs. Yeah. Like they would pretty much be in a bad place because he does seem to be the only one that knows anything about that. And again, I've been on projects where there is someone who knows everything. And they're not as bad as Dennis. Like sometimes you try and tell me a little bit about it. Like, oh no, this is my. I know all this. Like, yeah, we have to share a little bit. No. You take my job. So
Yeah.
there is a bit of risk with Dennis there as well. But as we know, he leaves the island anyway. He don't care.
We'll come on to that.
Everyone keeps ruining.
I didn't ruin it. That's
I
what
feel
already
like
been
if
ruined.
you've attended this panel and not wanted spoilers, it's tough.
So you all predicted it.
They might go on and off for a while. There's nothing to worry about. It's just a silly thing.
Any kids?
Me? Oh, hell yeah, 3. I love kids. Anything at all can and does happen. Same with wives, for that matter.
You married?
Occasionally. Yeah, I'm always on the lookout for a future ex-Mrs. Malcolm.
Five, four, three, two, one.
That's odd.
What?
Door security systems are shutting down.
Well, Ned said a few systems would go offline, didn't he?
DNA. How do you have prevented Dennis from being able to just do what he did?
Well, it's interesting that they've got that monitoring on it. And Samuel L. Jackson sees that something's gone wrong, and he just accepts that something's down and there's no problem with it. He said some systems will go offline, that's fine, no problem with that. I don't really understand what the point in having any monitoring on it is, if that's the way they're going to react to it. Which just goes back to show the incompetence of Samuel L. Jackson in this film. Because he is incredibly incompetent. Like, they have no idea about what their team is supposed to be doing. Like, especially what Dennis is supposed to be doing right now. Also Dennis, actually. I like Dennis, but I don't know why he does that thing where he has that stopwatch. Like, why does he have a 60-second countdown?
That's when the cameras go off.
Yeah, but he has a reset button on it. So if he's doing this thing where he wants no one to stop it, why have a thing where there's a reset button? Just work it into the script, you know? It's like they could have just gone over and gone, oh, let's stop that.
But I think that does happen in not the reset button, but you know, where people see things in monitoring and they'll kind of go, oh, that's a bit strange. But then not do anything further about it. Yeah. I think maybe that does happen quite a lot.
Or you see problems for a while, so you just assume. It's like having automated tests that you start to ignore as they start to go wrong, because, well, there's already 45% of them are showing errors every day, so, you know, another one showing an error, it doesn't really make much difference. It's the same thing, isn't it? It's, it becomes normalised. And
yeah, it will start reacting.
Yeah.
I love the execute button. That's great. I'm gonna get one of those on my computer tomorrow. I'm gonna put one up. I'm just saying that's all I had to say about that. I do think though that they need a bit of penetration testing, really, don't they? They need people coming in actually trying to make it all go wrong. Then they'd be ready for those scenarios. They'd have their kung fu moves for if someone tried to get in there.
Yeah.
They'd have had internal audit telling them you need to, if the monitors go off, you have to have someone stood by the door. You know.
Did they think that anyone was going to do it though? Did they even see that risk? Like, they're on an island.
Well, they had the
quite
monitoring.
hard to get to. Yeah, they had the monitoring. But
They had the monitoring. Why was the monitoring there?
Okay.
Yeah, the only people on the island are them. Yeah. So they're effectively monitoring themselves.
So they're looking for
and yet,
internal
one person
fraud.
can turn them off.
It's like having no trust again.
Yeah.
I worked at a job that kept your card if you went to the toilet. They knew how long you went to the toilet for. They don't trust you.
What's your record?
Was it just you? Was it just you
Bad
personally?
food one night, bad food.
You personally?
No,
or
everyone.
everyone?
No,
I
the
was
whole
just
company.
checking.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
checking.
Yeah, the whole company. They tracked everyone's card wherever they went, and then one person's job was to review it.
But you can look at the trust thing another way as well. So, I mean, I work in the finance industry. It's a fact that we are far more likely to lose data from an internal employee stealing it than from somebody externally being able to break into the systems. So you have to at least be thinking a bit about how do we make sure people only have access to what they need to have access to, and how do we protect our customers' data in that scenario. And as we're saying, they've obviously thought a bit about it because they've gone, oh, well, we'll have a bit of monitoring here.
I doubt Jurassic Park has ISO 20007. You know, it's like I doubt they've been through any accreditation process for that kind of
I think
stuff.
that's a really good point.
How they have the documentation for their processes for accessing these kind of things and that kind of stuff.
I think
safety critical systems would need to have those kind of, you know, there's regulatory kind of bodies for things like, so aeroplane software and that kind of stuff. I'm sure they have backup safety, and it is actually sabotaged internally in the film. And I imagine that for safety critical systems they would have to have some kind of regulations that they go through for that. But I don't know what they are. But I would say if this is a UAT, perhaps they shouldn't have used real dinosaurs.
No, but this is the real system.
Perhaps they could have used some sort of substitute, like a slightly less frightening animal.
What, like ants or something? Mind you, some of those are frightening. But the, you know, I don't think that's the case, because you've got to test the real system, haven't you?
The system, yeah, but not necessarily the real.
But are the dinosaurs not part of the system? I would argue that they're part of the system. They're an inherent part. How do you know?
Could you mock them out?
As I was just about to say, you could mock the dinosaur. I reckon someone could do a good dinosaur impression in the room.
Robot dinosaurs, there you go.
No one's jumping up to do a dinosaur impression.
Where's Gwen?
No. You see, there's no mocks. There's no mocks for the dinosaur. But also, I think they're an inherent part of the system in this scenario. I don't actually think they're just something we're interfacing with. But even if they were, at some point you do need to do an integration test.
Perhaps so.
I think they're the data in the system.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
But-
thinking
So you could control the data that's in
So
the
they're
system
kind of
for
like
it,
big data.
but- Some of them are, yeah. You know.
That's another thing. There were some very small dinosaurs, so they would have to make sure that they catered for like fencing and that kind of stuff. They'd have to cater for that.
Yeah, that's true. One component we should call out that's really good is that can. Because, you know, it's going to be a spoiler again here, but, you know, that works and indeed keeps it for years and years under some mud, like in cold storage, so that Jurassic Park 2 can happen, you know, which is really good. That's a really good thing.
That's pretty awesome.
All hail the spray can.
To go back to the original, one of the original points is, it's nagging me, so I've got to bring it up. I think that I'm not convinced they are monitoring. I actually think it's more of a disaster recovery situation that those cameras are set up for. So the circuit telling you that the circuit's been broke is notifying you, but I don't think they designed it to be told that stuff had changed. I think it's more of like, you mentioned planes when they crash. Up until like 5 years ago, it all got put in the black box, whereas now they stream everything to in real time back to headquarters. I'm not convinced they were designing it to be that way.
In what way would that help you recover from a disaster?
So they try and piece what happened, so they could use the cameras to then find out exactly what did happen.
So it's not disaster recovery.
Oh
per
no,
se.
but I meant as in
it's for the next experiment.
Yeah, to find out who did it, why they did it, why did this happen. I don't think they designed it to be alerted as such.
So do you think it was streaming out so that people off the island would be able to?
I think it was just recording, but like they.
So a black box type scenario.
Yeah, they could have had it on screens, but I don't think they had it on the screens necessarily to watch all the time. Even though there's a few people in the film that are trying
Just
to watch
watching
it, but
they're employing people to watch it. I'm just saying.
It's not the same.
You could be right, because they did learn from this. If you take Jurassic World, which is, you know, rebuilding the park. I'm sorry, I'm going there.
Yeah.
But they didn't have, you know,
better
fences for the wire fences either. They had concrete fences, you know. So, I mean, there's other mistakes in that film, obviously, that things happen, but, you know, don't want to spoil it, but they don't stay. but they tried. You know, they did learn from it.
Okie dokie.
You also got the failure modes of the doors.
The what, sorry?
The failure mode of the door is fails open, which stuff like that is ridiculous.
It goes back to design. And
Yeah.
it could have been fail secure.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I just ask, like, did no one, like, the first thing that I thought about it was, like, I think at some point right at the beginning, is it Hammond, John Hammond? It's like basically no expense spared. Yet the island's only got like 5 members of staff to herd out an entire theme park of dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Like, I think maybe more staff could have been a solution on that front.
It would have kept the dinosaurs alive for longer, wouldn't it?
Well
fed.
fed. Security guards in case of like disaster happens like that. Oh, power outage. Well, let's get security here and guard off anything that happens in that.
Ah, but you see, if you've got it fully automated, do you really need that many people?
Fully automated.
If, I did say if.
No, define fully automated. Because I don't think such a thing exists.
Automated enough that 5 members of staff are enough.
I think there's an event before this clip, which is that there's a storm coming, which is causing island to evacuate. And that's why there's a
that's
different
true.
Oh, right, yeah.
But it does show that they don't have a plan for that either. But there's a storm.
That an island has storms.
I think we can all agree that there's a severe lack of risk log in this scenario. Or, you know, I've seen quite a lot of situations where risks go in the risk log, and that means they are handled. So maybe they do have a risk log that just contains all these risks.
Yeah, they've written it down. So
They've
it's
written
okay.
it down.
Yeah.
So we've thought about it, And we've written it down. Sorted.
We've written it down.
Like a critical fail, and then you're like, you go and talk to someone about it, like, oh yeah, I knew that happened.
I think they saw it to Dennis. They've written it down, given it all to Dennis, and he's just exploited every risk. He's automated a script to exploit every risk. Dennis is so underrated.
So ahead of his time with that automation.
Everyone would love Dennis in their team. You just have to manage him better. Like Dennis is clearly a troubled soul that needs
Just
really
needs a
good
bit more love.
advocacy and mentoring. That's what he doesn't have, you know. But technically wise, he's really good.
Is that not like a future film? Dennis's plan, like from the very beginning, the whole thing was just Dennis to get.
We should make
embryos.
the film. All of us should make the final film, which is Dennis.
Story of Dennis.
Dennis Park or something.
Dennis Park.
And then when they
Park's
interview
full
us
of
at the Oscars, we can say we came up with it. I've been testing atelier.
Obviously, like the horror story, what happens in a developer in a waterfall setting on a time. You also caught the talk earlier.
Right, moving on to the next clip.
As long as we can get some roller skating dinosaurs in the film.
Absolutely.
Can we do that?
Every film should have that.
Will that be the...
It's the best bit. Oh, let it go a few seconds. Oh, it's cut. I see it.
And that is why you had to put your card in whenever you went to the bathroom.
Pretty much. They knew where he was at least. They would have been able to find out exactly what was wrong with him.
And also, he was obviously wasting time in the bathroom. He didn't even have his trousers down or anything. It's obviously only me that cares about these things. But it's not very right, is it?
No.
No.
I feel like that toilet whole thing didn't really have much load put on it, and they tested it. Like the
Like the toilet itself?
No, then the toilet is amazing. I'll get on to that. The whole system around it didn't really have the T-Rex load put through it. But that's probably because they thought a T-Rex would never use it. But that's not planning for the worst. That's not planning for the edge case. So, but the toilet survives the whole ordeal. The toilet's amazing. That's a component. That's brilliant.
No one's even using the toilet. They're just sitting on it, wasting time.
Depends what you term using a toilet. You know, like he's using it for shelter. No. He's using it to hide. Granted.
You should have hidden in it. Because it's pretty stable.
That's true. T-Rex wouldn't have gone in there, would he? He'd have
It would have just been too much.
Yeah, we wouldn't have seen it because it wouldn't have moved, I suppose. See, if he just sat still as well.
Maybe that's how you get a break in that place. You just go like hide in the toilet.
True. So the T-Rex is your superpower.
This is my point. He's going, you've been in here, we know. We're looking at that. You've been in here 43 minutes now.
So I thought this demonstrated why it's really important to have conversations and understand what you're doing before you take any action. Because the first guy with the flare clearly knows what he's doing and understands that the T-Rex will follow the movement, and the second guy didn't know what he was doing at all, and then he actually ends up on the floor of the toilet later. I don't know if I remember that, but he does.
Are you saying this happened because they didn't have a stand-up?
Yeah. I'm saying, well, actually, I was thinking of Three Amigos. Like, they should have Three Amigos, really, before they started waving the flares around the T-Rex.
Is the T-Rex one of the three?
Right, my reaction is going to be this, yeah.
I didn't consider the T-Rex an amigo.
I think
Maybe that's why it's angry.
Yeah, he feels left out. Should have considered that.
I thought it was one of those scenarios where there's a pure duplication of effort. Because we
Yeah.
two people doing the same thing at the same time and conflicting against each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, they weren't even at the same time. They weren't even at the same time. They were like, 30 seconds afterwards. He had time to even acknowledge what the other person had done, but he didn't bother to.
But I think the fact that what he saw was a system that he saw worked, and he thought he knew how and why it worked. And you get that with systems, don't you, where people sort of are using them who don't really know how to use them right, but they're kind of seeing some other people using them. And that's the kind of testing scenario which exploratory testing is good at, where people are sort of really don't know how to use this thing, and what on earth are they going to do to it when they go in and dig.
So that flare is kind of like selenium, really. Smart people hold on to it and get rid of it as soon as possible. And then the other people, they hold on to it forever. And then eventually come unstuck. Yeah, exactly. Interesting. I'll make a note of that. Selenium flare.
Selenium flare.
There's an important security lesson to learn from this as well. I think we assume that the dinosaurs won't get past the fence, so the toilet building doesn't need to be dinosaur proof. So it's like, we've got a firewall, everything that has behind that.
Yeah.
And we've got to be complacent.
I'm not sure that toilet was even stormproof.
Exactly.
Never mind dinosaur proof.
Well, it was surviving in the storm, to be fair, until the T-Rex barged his way in.
You see, I'm a little upset that we're only ever thinking about this from a humanist side. How well did this system work for the dinosaurs? I mean, they're quite upset. No, they're quite upset in this. They're trying to have a nice life. These cars keep coming round.
He's smiling.
How's
that? I mean, that is a smile.
Yeah, but it's a funny situation, isn't it?
I'm going to eat you.
Yeah, I don't think they're upset at all. I think that's their normal behaviour. They're having a good time.
We're talking about diversity here,
Okay.
and I think it's very humanist to just think about that from a human point of view. I mean, we should have a bring pet to work day, for example. Things like that. Not that that's what I want to do or anything. I don't even have a pet, but I do. I think we should have a bring a pet to work day, and if that happens to be a dinosaur, that's fine. The dinosaur should be part of the team.
But we just said the dinosaur's not an amigo. So.
Well, exactly. That's why it's eating them. Where you've got somebody in your organisation who you don't think should be a stakeholder in this, who really wants to get involved, and they get angry and start putting up barriers and trying to stop things happening. Invite them to be an amigo.
Doesn't matter if they've got the dragon size of a walnut.
Most people in my organisation do.
A lot of stakeholders do.
Yeah, that's a dangerous question.
So there's not talking about prevention and stuff. There doesn't really seem to be anything in these cards that helps in such a situation, apart from a flare, which you're meant to just throw away. There's nothing else in there that is designed you could design the car relatively strong, so you could just sit in it, and it wouldn't be crushed. But then T-Rex quite big.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because they do have a flare. So somebody somewhere's had a bit of a think, because you wouldn't normally have a flare in a car, would you? So somebody somewhere's had a bit of a think about some situation, just not the T-Rex eating you on the toilet situation.
Well, they haven't trained their users at all, have they? So there's no idea. Like you said, they've got a flare in the car, but none of them have been told to do that, because they just look around the car to see what's happening afterwards, just to see if there's anything there. So they have no idea what to do in the situation there's a T-Rex standing on top of them.
So it's like there's a brand new system, and we're asking people to acceptance test it, but we haven't trained them in the system.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't told them the areas to look at or what they're looking for. So
maybe the system needs to be more intuitive. Maybe get some UX guys in there.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's a really good point, actually.
And stop drinking on the job as well. That can't help. It's probably skewed his judgment a little bit.
You go back to disaster recovery as well with this, because when that fence is down, there's nothing else. Also, that's a really flimsy fence. All right, it's electrocuted. I still don't think that would have stopped it. I think, as we'll see from another clip later on, but I think that probably would have just marched through that fence and gone, "Ooh, that pinged a bit,"
Speaking of the other fence clip.
I like seeing the whole film, you like.
Oh, look at that mobile phone.
It says push to close.
Push to close. Okay.
Push it. Now, Eddie, the red buttons turn on the individual part systems. Switch them on. You're gonna have to jump. Let's go! I'll count to 3. 1, 2, 3! Coming up to get you. Gotta get to him.
Count to 3. 1, 2.
Not breathing.
Oh, you would stop the kid from getting electrocuted?
I wouldn't know.
I don't think there's no evidence that he did.
And
he might have jumped just in time and been
Yeah.
active. We don't actually know.
But that fence
And I
is
think he
useless.
deserved it as well, you know.
Absolutely, yeah, to me, that fence is supposed to stop a dinosaur, or multiple dinosaurs. Exactly, yeah, it didn't even kill a boy. Like, that should be the test. Put a boy on it.
In fact, that was the best bit, where they were really properly testing
Yeah,
things.
that's the best test they did, yeah. I also think this goes back to, on a more serious point, this goes back to the system design, because right from the start, they put the place to turn on all the fences, again, in the event of something going wrong or a power cut or something like that, the place you have to go to turn all the fences is halfway across the park from where the team work. So they've designed the system so that if something goes wrong, then everyone has to run between the dinosaurs to try and turn everything back on again. It's an insane dinosaur system. So
You're just being negative.
I
Yeah, that was a cool system where you pushed buttons and a big thing came up. I mean,
That's true,
what
it
more
did
could
look
you ask
pretty
for?
cool,
It was,
didn't it?
it
Yeah.
was cool.
They could have picked it all up and moved it there, like next to them, but I feel it would have been a lot better.
All right, because then they would have all seen how cool it was.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll let you have that.
I think there was some positives in that as well. There was some documentation floating around. There was. He was having a little read, telling her what to press. Documentation, important. Especially when the dinosaurs come out.
It could have been located on the inside door of the
Alright.
Or move the two places closer together.
This is why people this is why people don't write
Yeah.
documentation. You write some documentation and people rip it apart, so what's the point?
And I think back to the earlier point from the audience around UX design as well. Did we really need that documentation? If the UX designer said push this button first and then work your way down, it could have just been visually like an arrow or something.
Yeah.
I think the monitoring was falling down a bit there as well, because if they'd have been able to see if there were any kids on fences at the time,
They'd have pushed it quicker. Because he almost got off in time, didn't he? Yeah, and you wouldn't
she
want to
only
miss
just
the
got in.
opportunity.
That does show that when you do user acceptance testing, you can't guarantee what the user's going to do, because you've got a warning sign. It's quite loud, that, so that when you turn it on, it's warning, and then someone's going to supposedly get off the fence. But he decides to stay on the fence.
But
You
I
can't-
see this as natural selection in action.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why it wasn't in any feature films. No one liked it.
it's interesting that natural selection's okay for the boy but not the dinosaurs. So we had to protect the dinosaurs.
Just
earlier
cool,
on.
though, aren't they? He doesn't roar anywhere near as cool as T-Rex.
He didn't smile.
Didn't he?
T-Rex did.
Yeah.
T-Rex is far more friendly, you see.
Yeah.
But he's not an amigo though.
When you say that, I
You
just
keep
picture a
saying
dinosaur
that.
in a sombrero. That would be really cool.
I didn't realise it was going to be so humanist at this event today.
Got some more positives. Well, I've got one positive. Microservice architecture. They could have just had one electrocuted fence button, but no, they broke it down. Many fences. They thought about it.
It was quite manual though, wasn't it?
Well, yeah.
It wasn't
A little
really
bit.
logical order either, because the last things that they turned on was the T-Rex. The last thing that's the first thing that turned on. The top of the list.
Yeah.
That's true. I'm also not convinced the colours were the right way around. Like pressing green to start an electrocuted fence didn't seem. I think that needs working on that.
Going back to UX.
UX again, yeah.
I think it could have done with a bit of A/B testing as well.
Selector.
You know, if we electrocute this part of the fence and not that part, you know, which bits are they more likely to come through? Will they avoid the electric part? You know, we just don't know the answer. So for future films that I know nothing about, for future films, you know, you don't know how to best protect because you haven't done your A/B testing.
What do you mean film? Documentary. Yeah.
Yeah. Documentaries are
Just
films.
joking. Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Yeah, well, not all of them, but some of them are. The long ones.
Yeah.
The really long ones are series.
Ah, gotcha. Learning every day.
Today I learned.
On the topic of UX though, like not the generator part, but the actual walls UX, like the fences, was really good when you think about it because you've got a massive blaring warning like 30 seconds or so before anything actually happens.
It is blue though, that warning light. That's not a colour I generally associate with a warning.
But just as but red, I guess it means it's charged. Blue means it's
But
charging.
if you're talking about UX, a blue light is sort of like, oh, it's blue. That's
I
nice.
was talking about
That's probably alright.
Like a giant blaring siren wave really well.
Again, you don't know what that means though. Everyone interprets it differently.
I don't think
Like,
any
it could
of
just
the
mean
users of
cool
the
stuff happening.
I don't think those users of the fence were confused as to the meaning of the siren and the blue light.
I feel that was a bit contrived. I felt like they could have been confused in that situation.
It's
though.
just those three were
Yeah,
super users.
yeah.
Okay.
I do remember there being a thing about them training the dinosaurs by sounding the siren and then electrifying the fence. And then what happened was the dinosaurs associated the siren with the electric and they stay away from the fence. So
It worked really
Could
well.
that be some sort of accessibility testing? Colours dinosaurs can see, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be that the blue light's particularly good for dinosaur eyes.
Maybe that's true. Yeah.
On the accessibility thing, the lights are really high up, and the siren, if you're deaf, like you're not going to know. You're just going to get electrocuted and go flying like that kid.
The lights are on the wrong side of the fence as well. They're on the dinosaur side, because you can see the kid on the opposite side of the lights.
That's true.
Yeah, but
the humans and the dinosaurs.
The dinosaurs are more expensive than the humans.
But if you are on the fence at the time that occurs, it's just going to scare the hell out of you, isn't it? You know, it's from a
As
UX
it did.
point of view, you probably think, well, you need a bit of more of a gentle warning.
So a nice
please,
voice just
please
saying,
get off the fence.
do you
A
not
nice
think...
friendly error message.
Yeah.
You appear to be on the fence. I don't think
Yeah.
you should be on the fence.
So you may be electrocuted in a few moments. So please try to remove
So would
yourself.
that be the equivalent of you're looking at your bank account online and it's going, someone might currently be just removing money from your account. Look at, just watch this lovely thing as it counts there.
It's a less life-threatening situation.
Yeah, that's true.
So panic is less important. But if you're in a life-threatening situation, you don't want people to panic. Do you? I genuinely don't think you do want people to
Well,
panic.
you don't want
and if
them
you
to
start
freeze.
blaring a siren at them,
That kid just froze. I agree. It's
Mm.
pretty stupid.
He is.
He deserved it.
That was my kid.
And can the
Go
kid
on,
not
what
get through the fence? Like looking at the fence, he looks like he could fit through that. Like, why is he
Absolutely.
climbing it in the
He
first
didn't even
place?
try, did he?
No. Deserves everything he gets.
Yeah.
Okay, panelists, we're getting close to the break. Any final thoughts before we go down and get some more beer?
There's no more clips. Okay.
No more clips.
they were really unlucky.
They were quite unlucky.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously.
There was a storm.
Yeah.
There was sabotage.
It's a lot of variables in their environment
Mm.
that they haven't considered.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly they don't have a disaster recovery plan, and they've not tested that situation at all. But I sort of feel a bit bad for them. I mean, it really is a combination of a lot of things going wrong that's caused this. In a test scenario where they've learned from that, we can't forget that. You know, it was a test scenario. Like, the problem there is they put real users into it as well. Like the two kids that, you know, why has he invited them along? He knows this is a test scenario. I'll bring my grandkids along to it in this test scenario where we haven't actually tested that the dinosaurs won't eat anyone. Like he's actually, the more I think about this, Adam is an awful person in this film.
Or he's engineered the whole thing. He knows his grandson's got no future.
Yeah. Or they're really rich.
Just saying, that could have happened.
Is it just one massive fire? Like, he just knows, what happens if I turn this on?
Maybe.
And then they're trying to solve it.
Surely Attenborough's just a confident developer, isn't he?
Is what?
He's a confident developer.
Yeah. How can you, accident one in the pub saying, oh, grandson's a bit stupid, wonder what we can do about that, and then somehow dinosaurs got into the equation, a few more bears down, came up with that master plan. It's genius.
I feel like we shouldn't distract from the genius that is this film, though, because this is one of the greatest films of all time. Just want to put that out there.
Except that there weren't any roller skates.
That's true. Yeah.
That's the only thing
that would
that
have
could have
elevated
improved it.
you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there a point that if they were better tested, they were really bad film?
Yeah, probably. It would have been just dull.
It would have been. It would have
They
been
just
a
went
dull
around the
film,
park,
yeah.
see no dinosaurs, and that'd have been the film. No.
There'd have been people standing there going, "I'm pretending to be a dinosaur."
You could probably apply that to quite a few films, didn't you? Really? Like, I can't think of any right. Jaws, perhaps. You know, like that beach clearly isn't that safe. You know, that boat wasn't big enough. You know, those kind of things. like if every film was a system that was tested perfectly, I think they'd all be quite boring. You know, the Poseidon Adventure, any disaster movie, but Titanic. You know, all that stuff. Real life. You got
Okay, guys.
Testers keep everything built and boring.
I think
they keep everything working. There you are. Let's get it like.
I think that is the lesson from this whole session is testers keep life dull and boring.
You don't like drama.
And I was about to give a smart conclusion, but that would be dull and boring, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play along.
Alright, cool. Thank you, panelists.